audio one?
Listening to the same thing, but it's performing the same process independently. So it doesn't have to speak to each other. It's just all going off of this one metronome. So our most similar competitor is a smartwatch type feature. It has a bit of a fancier screen, but it has mostly the same features minus some of ours. We have some more features over it. And it is $120 for the base version, which is the cheapest. Ours will probably sell from stores for about $50. So we're under half the price of the closest market competitor. And our haptic feedback provides a lot more precise beat marking with vibration. Especially at high frequencies, vibration can get really messy, which makes it really hard to distinguish the beat. But haptic is a lot more precise and a lot more clear with what you're feeling. We're currently in talks with the patenting lawyer, and he thinks that we should be able to patent our product. There's no conflicting patents. We're different enough from our competitors that there's no real issues there, and that's currently the process. Thank you.
Question. So with haptic feedback, how will you toe the line between them not even noticing it if there's too concentrated on a piece and it whacking their hand out of place and making them play weirdly?
Trial and error. Just gonna build the system. 3 of us are musicians, so we can actually test this product ourselves for a little while, and we'll just kind of get a feel for it. We think that, I mean, obviously we don't want it to be too hard that it should hurt, but also with the metronome, I mean, I think it's almost better if you don't want to like have it be so distracting, because like you're gonna focus on it yourself when you need the beat for it. But you don't want it to be super in your face. That's the issue with metronomes now, is they're in your face all the time.
Will you have a feature where, like in an orchestra, different sections might have different tempos? So like how will you, like let's say the violins are at this tempo versus the violas are at that tempo, like will you sync different sections differently?
You could have people sync to different metronomes, and different beats. My personal experience in music, I never had anything where we were running at different tempos per section. Did you, Paul?
Not really. If anything, it was like in between, like music. When you play, there might be a section like, but it's not like the different sections in the band play at different tempo. It's like the whole band plays at one.
Yeah. Not a very common occurrence from what I've seen. No, but you could sync different groups of metronomes to different ones.
So I'm presuming y'all are still in the prototype stage, correct?
Yes.
What is the predicted cost of manufacturing?
We're estimating about $13. That's our guess. We're trying to get it down. I'm looking at different like chips to use and stuff, but that is our current estimate. It's about $13.
How's the prototyping process going?
It's actually going really well. We actually have code that can do most of our features right now. And then we just need to build a physical system and upload it. That's about it. So we're
mostly to build the hardware now, figure out what we're going to use for the hardware. That's been the harder part right now. We're trying to learn more about that, but as far as the software, it's mostly working.
So we have proof of concept. We know that it will indeed work, and now we just need to implement it. Learn how to build small stuff.
You mentioned you sell it probably for 25 to distributor, and then retail for 49. Have you checked what people need to make in order to sell things? The distributor is going to want to double, so he wants 50. The retailer needs at least double that or more to make a profit. So you're already up to $100 to 125.
Yeah, so we're actually trying to bring the cost down a little bit. I don't know where 13 is kind of like the high end of what we're looking at. We're going to see if like at mass production costs, if we can bring the cost down. That's kind of the big thing is no matter what, we're like, if we take a smaller margin, we can like still sell through a distributor and keep it lower than the competitor by like a sizable amount. Like
Yeah, I personally wouldn't worry about the competitor. If you price yourself too low, you can go under anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
so
profit-wise, but any distributor or any retailer, the minimum is double, or they can't do business.
Yeah.
They just can't.
yeah, my dad is actually, he owns a distributorship for another industry. And so that kind of came to our attention actually 2 days ago. So right now we're looking into lowering the costs. If we do that, yeah, we might go direct to consumer, like we might change our business model but that would require more money upfront if we decide to do that. So we're looking into how to fix that right now.
Well, it's good that you found that out.
Yeah, we found that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of our big focuses right now, is we're trying to decide how we're gonna take this to market, because we've run into issues with our distributor idea. And we're
Yeah.
thinking about the feasibility of going direct to consumer early on.
Going off of his question, once you have the prototype, will you begin a testing phase where you have people using it?
Yeah.
And how long will that last, and what will that involve before you go to retailers?
So our testing phase would probably be going to band directors, and offering them a few units to like use in their band, and see how they feel for like a month or two. And then get their feedback so that we can go to distributors and stuff from there, or realtors, depending on what we choose at that point.
Well, kind of going along with what he said, I mean, I do own a small company, we do work through distributors, and that double to the distributor, the retailer's got to double it, that pricing, but on your thing, man, I don't think you're a race to the bottom to say I'm the cheapest, you're the best. You've already described so many good things about what you've got. The market's out there, they'll pay. You know, I think you focus on how great our quality, our thing is, and if it's $100, if it's $120, if it's $10 more than the competitor, but ours is so much better, people will pay for it. I think there's an aspect of this also. One of the boards I served on was a youth orchestra in San Antonio. They had a lot of brand new musicians, and they were trying to teach them how to do the metric everything. So I'm thinking there's an education component to this too, where you could sell to educational institutions.
Or
And
getting
to
to
his
schools.
point, this could also be a self-distribution thing. You're selling out through Amazon.
Yeah,
Don't be a hoarded distributor. I'm that right now. They're crazy.
A big part of it is we do want to be able to sell to distributors and stuff, but like if we can do that, that'd be great. Because distributors actually have connections with orchestras and stuff, and so a big part of our consumer would probably be orchestras and school bands and stuff like that. But in order to be able to sell to school bands, we would have to keep our costs pretty low, because right now the go-to metronome, I think it sells like 4,000 units for the next best one sells like 4,000 for every 300 that the next best sells.
Yeah.
So
Because you
it's-
keep everybody in time.
yeah, yeah, and that one that sells like better than any other one. It's $30 a unit.
Does it keep everybody in time?
No,
that's
that's a
for
normal
individual.
metronome. That's a normal metronome. And that's like not a vibration based metronome, but that's what most schools use right now, and it's $30. So if we're looking to replace normal metronomes, it would be hard to market that like towards schools if we're doubling the
Shrinking
price.
budgets.
Yeah, especially like
Yeah.
I remember when I was in band, we were definitely not the most well-funded group in our school.
Exactly.
Um,
So yeah, so that's a big reason that we're trying to keep the costs low. So right now, I think our goal is to lower the cost as much as we can, so we can keep selling through distributors and also sell to like school bands and stuff. And if not, then I guess our next plan of action would be to figure out a plan for selling direct to consumer.
Y'all mentioned that y'all are conducting interviews with school band directors and people like that. Y'all mentioned a market, y'all mentioned that this product was more accessible to those who might be hard of hearing. Have y'all actually done any customer discovery on that?
No, yeah, we're very early in the stages of that, especially with like band directors and stuff. Amazingly, school band directors don't like answering their emails as much over the summer. Big surprise. We're just recently started like our individual interviews and stuff, but we haven't been able to talk to any hard of hearing physicians yet.
I know nothing about music, so I'll put that out there first. But does parents always buy the instruments 99% of the time? I mean, that's how I've seen it. So why wouldn't they buy this?
It's very possible, and part of it is we want the band directors to like it, because band directors will be like, hey, you need a metronome, here's what we recommend you buy.
Okay,
There is a good chance that parents buy for their kids. It depends on what area. Like some schools will give, if you need it, if you can't afford an instrument, then schools have some that they provide. But I know in my personal experience, most people bought their own instruments. And I think parents would be willing to buy kids the metronome too, but the best way to kind of get the word out about it, I think, is through the band directors, because they're the ones that will suggest what to buy to the students.
Yeah, how it works right now is basically for a school band, the band director will just send out a list of all the things that every student needs, basically. And in that list is the metronome that sells really well. The TM, it's a Korg TM60. And so our goal would be to be on that list, but to be on that list, we need to be affordably priced probably. We're trying, right now, that's a big part of what we're doing is when we're calling band directors, like I'm asking them questions, we're also trying to figure out if this adds enough value that they'd be willing to pay more for it and how much more they'd be willing to pay for it. So we can get an idea of how much, of like what price we need to sell at.
See, I think a marketing campaign done with video and, you know, could position you as something that is needed without worrying so much about a price. And I think you're too worried about the price and not to make money, but that's just me.
Okay.
I'll go back to what he said with the value. Value is more important than price.
Are you're marketing to university bands as well, right?
Yeah, university.
And to echo what he said, the parents, parents outlay a lot. My son was in both high school band and Texas Tech Noah band. And we outlay a ton of cash, not just for the instrument, but at least in college, we had to pay for the youth and the travel. Even though, you know, the university sponsored a lot of the travel, we had to front a good portion of the travel.
Yeah.
So I can see where the band director, the designer, or the, you know, whatever, would tell students, you need this, you need this, you need this, and you need this metronome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Thank you, that's really good feedback, actually.
I have no that's about music, but the metronome that I was talking about, the one that sells really well, is that so you're suggesting this your product as a replacement to that?
I mean, yeah,
An
we would
alternative, yeah.
want to, I would be in their market, so
And
they'd
would
be a
it
competitor.
cost lesser than
Sorry?
would it cost less than how much?
No, theirs would cost less, most likely. What our initial thought was if, like, we need to figure out how much more value we're adding, like, in people's minds so that we can price it well. But if we can make it a really good product, then we wouldn't have to worry about that too much. So.
I want to get a little bit of context because I can't carry a toad in a bucket. So does two questions here. Does each band only need one metronome for a room of students? And does each student need one of your bracelets?
So each student would need a bracelet, yes, because there'd be no way to feel it otherwise.
Yes.
But it would require one metronome. So what it does is it can so you would put on an audio metronome for about 6 seconds, be it from your phone or something on a free app. And all of our individual watches can listen to it for takes about 3 seconds. It can listen to it, find out the beats, and then sync up to that beat. And then you can turn off your metronome, and all of them will stick to that beat that was established.
But at present, bands only need one metronome, correct?
Yes.
So your bands for everyone are a replacement for the singular metronome, right?
Yes, but at the same time, at present, bands still requires or recommend that students each buy an individual metronome for
Okay.
practice. So either way, they're going to be buying a metronome for practice. So it's not like
Okay.
in the
Okay.
context of the actual when they're all together, they're only using one, but everyone's buying a metronome at the beginning of the semester anyway.
Everyone needs an individual.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about the life of the product? Like how long and I don't know how long a regular metronome lasts, but what about the risk, the wearability, for students? Do you guys have a gauge, how often do they have to replace the bands or?
We haven't started, we're still looking at hardware right now, so that's kind of
Do you have an idea of we would like them to replace it every 2 years or?
we haven't done research on
biggest-
it yet, honestly. Have you?
The biggest thing that would burn out in our product, like most products, is the battery. Lithium ion batteries with pretty constant use typically get about 2 to 3 years of life with constant charging. It depends on how long we can get the product to run off of a single charge. But my guess is the product probably starts showing significant battery loss in about 3 to 4 years.
Maybe you looking into like how long this one in the classroom lasts.
Well, those are like, you plug some double A's in the back. So
Oh,
those are
okay.
pretty much indefinite.
Okay. And then I was gonna suggest maybe reaching out to, or understanding a little bit more of the process of purchasing for if it's like schools or nonprofits that sometimes they get grants, so kind of networking with them, how does it work, how can you get like to the eyes of nonprofits that do music or music education, how does that impact the lives of students and all that, so you guys, I mean, that's a lot of the funding comes through that, or people seeking those funds, so maybe extending that path of grants and how can you get in front of them and work with that.
Have you thought about ways to quantify the performance improvement that students see using your product over a traditional metronome?
I mean, one way is like not traditional metronome, but like our competitor, for example, and they have like pretty good sales, but they also have pretty bad reviews. And people have said that like it doesn't sync, like the audio syncing just doesn't work. It's out of beat all the time. And ours like already on our version, like the one that we have on our computer, it works. So we have stuff like that where it actually stays in beat and stuff like that.
We can also, so like one way to quantify is like, it's been proven that using a metronome does tend to help rhythm and performance and stuff. So we could see how often somebody would practice on their own with the metronome, with the sound-based metronome, and then how often they practice with the metronome if it was haptic-based, and see if there's an increase there.
So say if some in the band are using the bracelet and some are using the actual like audible metronome, will there be any lag time between the haptic feedback and the actual sound from the actual metronome?
No, we're going to use signal processing to get those to line up pretty much exactly for the
Okay.
control system.
And I'm assuming, so we'll use signal processing too. So say you have measured with metronome playing on like beats 1 and 2, but when you sync it up, the bracelet comes on like beats 2 and 4, say like that. Will you signal processing to make sure they both like line up perfectly?
Yeah, they'll
Okay.
pretty much be exact.
Again, I might be tech illiterate, but what's the difference between haptic feedback and vibration-based feedback, and why are you going with haptic?
So like, it's hard to describe, but like, so you have an iPhone.
Yeah.
If you open it and you hold down on an app, you feel that like beat, like that touch
Yeah.
it gives you.
Sure.
That's haptic.
Okay.
Vibration is when it's like, like back and forth. Haptic is like, poke. It's a lot more clear, and it doesn't like, it's not, the duration isn't as long because it's just a little poke. It's pretty much instantaneous. But with vibration, it lasts for a little bit of time, which is why it muddies up at faster BPMs because it's kind of running like one vibration into the next. And then it's a lot more. Also, if it's like a little bit of length, and you're like, where exactly in that length of time does the beat rest? If it's poking you, you're like, okay, that's the exact beat. So that's why we're going to go with haptic.
Makes sense. Appreciate it.
I know a lot of metronomes have the 3, 4, 2, 3, that kind of thing. It's like, just do the same thing for the haptic system? Like, is there like one stronger haptic beat?
We could. We're debating if we should or not right now. I never used it. I've never used any time signature except for just the standard beat. And when I was in band, I never used anything different either. But it wouldn't be too difficult to add a different feature. We're currently debating if we should or not.
So marketing wise, who would be the musician or organization that probably has a big following? Who would you partner with? Who would you make the face of the organization? You or somebody that's kind of industry now?
So that's a big, in the music industry, distributors deal with marketing usually, distributors and retailers. So if we could, that's another big reason that we want to go through a distributor, is it really does take a lot of the costs and work off of us because they already have those networks. And if a distributor wants to sell it, they deal with the marketing themselves basically. And that's my brother-in-law. I don't know if you know Alamo Music Center. He's the owner of Alamo Music Center. So I talked with him a lot about it. And he gave me the idea to go through a distributor first. And so he was talking about how distributors do all the marketing for them. And he's a retailer, so.
You know, the more you're talking about this, this has so much more applications on music. So you should have a slide about that, especially if this pitch is for PCs. I can see this moving into the personal training world. Any group of people that need to keep time with one another. At ROTC drill team, a marching band, they have to make sure their time. Fitbit could buy something like this. So you should have a little teaser slide that says, hey, this has potential in the personal training market, and this is that atmosphere. This has potential in this particular market, and this is atmosphere. So now I've grown this company from this to this, and I need your help to get to this one. I think it's got so much more application.
We've had people like after every pitch, somebody will come up to us with some new way that it's used before that we never know. Like apparently fly fishing.
Yeah.
People use Tempo and fly fishing.
Absolutely.
Who would have known? I don't even really know what fly fishing is, except for fishing, but apparently it uses Tempo. So like every time we find out something new that can be used for that, that's definitely something we should do.
I was just gonna mention that like the Apple Watch and all those watches that have vibration, would that, like, could it be like an app or something that's integrated into another, like
This
an
is-
existing?
This is
device?
probably the most common question we get, like, why is it an app? Part of it is the accessibility. Not everybody has an Apple Watch and stuff, and they're really expensive. And so, like, if we wanted like a band to get them, no band director's gonna be like, everybody go home, tell your parents, buy you an Apple Watch. Sorry, but that's how it is. So that's our main reason to not go with an app. And then also, like, they tend to be vibration based, and they don't really have as like high speed vibration support. Like your phone doesn't vibrate as fast as like it's like designed to like vibrate at fast frequencies and stuff. It's just to notify you when somebody texts you and stuff. So reasons like that kind of hold us back on that. And that's why we want to go with the separate products.
Yeah, that being said, once we're done, once we've like gotten this one working and everything, it probably wouldn't be too difficult to make it into an app. So we might, it's possible down the line.
Back to more like a hardware thing, so things really cool. So are you gonna have support for four notes, triplets, 8 notes, like all the beats?
If that'll, yeah, we'll have like a mode selection type. where you can go,
Yeah, we'll do that. We're not sure if we're gonna have it set up to like process that. The signal processing might just be for like normal.
Because it'll just pretty much copy whatever it hears. It'll hear it and then it'll switch it to touch, like to.
And then is it like a monitor on the bracelet, or is it an app that you can like how do you like see which, can you like select which notes and which tempo you want on it on the bracelet itself, or?
Yes, it'll have like a 7-segment display that'll like display like what mode you're in and what frequency you're operating at.
Have y'all considered going like the Kickstarter kind of route, and like what have been like the like advantages, disadvantages of that?
We haven't really discussed Kickstarter, no. It's kind of something that slipped my mind. Thinking about Kickstarter a lot. You see it online, you're like, wow, that's a cool Kickstarter, but you don't hear them going anywhere that often, at least my experience. But we haven't thought about Kickstarter though, but that is something to give consideration too.
I just know like going over what you said, there is a pretty big market for like musical innovation with Kickstarter. So idea to check out.
Yeah.
Do you envision a separate bracelet, wrist, whatever, for the band director? In other words, you have some sort of like, the mothership, and all the students have theirs, but the band director is like, okay, blah, 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 everybody sing.
Yeah, so we actually did consider that. The main thing is that it's going to drive up the price to like add, because we have to either have Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, some sort of connectivity for it. But also our competitors, the one that sells for $20, they do have a feature where you can sync up to 5, I think, together from one, like one will choose to sync and all the other 5 will follow it. But there's latency issues, so they're not perfectly in sync, and a lot of people, like especially musicians who need it to be perfectly in sync, it's not good enough for them.
Anytime you switch something from like analog to digital, you're gonna get some delay there, and that's that communication with that.
Yeah, so it seems to have that technology doesn't work super well for this use, which is why we're trying the signal processing route. It's giving us good results so far.
Yeah.
I can't get my head around why you want a distributor to be tied to somebody like that when you can do your own marketing and sell on Amazon, they then distribute it 15%, maybe 17 now. And if you want to get band directors, it'd be cheaper just to send a few out. 100 of them to the biggest band directors in the country or something as a test, tell them test it for us.
So
And they'll be all happy that they're a test subject.
yeah, we came
See what I'm
into this
saying?
with our business model, but we
We're not
appreciate the
married to it.
feedback. Yeah, we might consider that now. It's not in our slides, obviously, but we'll definitely look into that now.
Everything's kind of fluid right now as
Well,
we're
yeah,
like
I mean-
getting into our market research. We're really gonna go off of like what people say. If band directors are like absolutely gaga about it, I see no reason not to go straight to them. And just kind of tough the cost initially, maybe look for more investors and stuff to help.
Yeah, because I think with a distributor, you're gonna be funding the cost anyway. Like it or not, they're probably not gonna want to put up the money. They want you to supply it and then they're.
So it's definitely something we'll have to see.
Yeah.
It's not definitive by any stretch. We're still playing around with different options, but giving your feedback, it definitely needs to be considered.
What's your competitors' market penetration like? You mentioned this other product that's inferior. Any idea what they're revenuing or what they're, is it a publicly traded company? We need to get that information.
I don't think they're publicly traded. I think it's private. It's not really clear. I know like if you go on most of the big, I think it's Sweetwater or something, instruments. If you go on like big instrument retailers and stuff, they do have a lot of a good amount of reviews. So it seems like they sell a good amount, but as far as actual numbers, they don't have anything.
Okay. So if I were to Google this, or I was to go on Amazon and look for a device, what would I put in the search bar?
If you put vibration-based metronome
Or wearable metronome.
wearable metronome,
And then how many different products would pop up?
There's a decent amount, but it's definitely one of the first searches I put is best wearable metronome.
Yeah.
And it came up with a list, and it stands it's definitely different. Every single other one is an audio-based clip-on metronome, you clip to your belt or
Yeah.
whatever.
But can you get an idea of how many people are competing in this space right now?
Yes, this is the big one that we found that has any traction behind it.
It seems that's the only one. I don't even know what he's talking about. That's the only one that I've seen. I've
Yeah.
researched it a few
So
times.
you're talking about doing market research, figuring out who your competitors are, where they're at. You can figure out what they're paying for rents, which will give you an idea of kind of what their revenue. There's ways you can look for ranges of revenues for particular types of companies. You get an idea of what the market looks like, what your competitors are doing, and that becomes your benchmarking, right? Our first year, we're outpacing our last two competitors. There's a system called North American Classification Industries Codes, NAICS codes. Every industry will have a NAICS code. Every type of business will have a NAICS code. So find out what that common NAICS code is. And when you follow your corporate quick board and get your IRS, you have to subscribe to that NAICS code. So you do research, figure out what those NAICS codes are in the United States. There's ways you can do that. And I use a system called DataView, which I can basically type in a NAICS code. It'll tell me everybody in the United States is doing that type of NAICS code. Cull through that because there are going to be some people that aren't even in your market. But figure out those names because you've done your research on Amazon. Those names are on the NAICS code. Find out where they're located at. And there might be a describer of what the revenue ranges are doing. Because they have to report that to the IRS when you file taxes if it's based on your NAICS code. So you can figure out what type of revs they're doing, and then you can get an idea of what the market is at that point. So you add all your competitors up, and they're okay. It's a $100 million market, right? That's what people are doing in sales every year. But you're saying, okay, well, the sales really should be like 300 million. That's right. So this much amount is the amount that we can capture with our product. It's better. Right. So that just helps venture capitalists understand what you guys are trying to, what the market is going to attack. But But then you do the little teacher thing, right? Now we're in personal training and now we're in these guys that need tempo with another. Now this market looks like this. Now wouldn't you want to be part of it? I mean, that's a sell pitch you guys do. But it starts with knowing, understand what the competitive landscape is.
Thank you, that's really useful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, absolutely.
One more question? Anyone?
You can find out the corporations. do that.
Great job, guys. Thank you everyone for coming and for the Trinity group. If you haven't applied for the presentation, please apply and we'll contact you. We can figure out the date that you have to present. And if you want to, any like of the presenters today or any of here, if you want to present again, you can always reach out to us like in 6 months or a year or whenever, if you want to present. This is an open platform. Also, if you have like a big concept, like you don't need a slide deck, you just come up here and share whatever concept you have. We have had people present just concepts, full-on grown ideas, new products, whatever you want feedback on. So thank you for being here today, and I hope to see you guys here. You can also come back as just to provide feedback and support local entrepreneurs from other business owners and just build the community that we have here. So thank you.